Welcome back to the deep dive. It is absolutely fantastic to have you with us today.
It really is.
Now, usually when we sit down to record one of these sessions, we have a very clear, very structured roadmap in front of us.
We do. We like a roadmap.
We take a stack of articles, maybe it's on macroeconomic trends in Southeast Asia, or perhaps a dense nonfiction book about, I don't know, the history of a steam engine.
Or the intricacies of urban planning. And we break it down.
Exactly. And our goal, typically, is to make you the most well-informed person in the room. We want you to walk into your next dinner party or your next board meeting armed with those clear, actionable nuggets of knowledge.
Right. We usually deal in the concrete. We trade in facts, figures, linear narratives, and, logical conclusions.
Yes.
We like things that make sense. We like cause and effect. We like history that stays in the past, and economics that, for the most part, follow the rules of supply and demand.
We do like things that make sense. It's comforting.
It is.
But today we are doing something entirely different. We are veering wildly off the map.
Throwing the compass overboard.
We are throwing the compass overboard. Because earlier this week, we received a memo from the big boss, Deep Dive CEO Stan Underwood. And I have to say, reading between the lines of this memo, I think Stan is a little bit confused.
Confused is putting it politely.
Yeah.
I'd say baffled is closer to the truth. Maybe even a little concerned for his own sanity.
The memo was brief, but the tone was
Frantic.
a little frantic, yeah. Stan sent us a digital file and audiobook he received from the Hufferspec Forum Library. It is titled The Pasquinade of the Panopticon.
Which is already a mouthful.
It is. Now, get this. On the library slip, the official categorization for this work is autobiography.
Which is a very specific category. I mean, an autobiography usually implies a factual, chronological recounting of a human life.
Right.
It suggests a structure like, I was born here, I went to school there, I struggled with this, I achieved that. It's supposed to be a mirroring of reality.
A life story. Simple as that. But Stan's memo says, and I'm quoting directly here because I can't make this up, this does not look like a life. It looks more like a surreal sci-fi fever dream designed to melt my hard drive.
Wow.
So he specifically ordered us, really, to unpack the density, the vocabulary, and the sheer absurdity of this text to find any nuggets of value. He wants to know if there is actually a signal in the noise.
It is a tall order, a very tall order.
Mm-hmm.
I have spent the last few days living inside this text, headphones on, trying to parse what is happening. And I have to tell you, it defies every traditional categorization we have.
He really does.
It is a linguistic labyrinth. It blends hyper-technical engineering jargon, archaic English from like the 17th century, and words that, to put it mildly, simply do not exist in any dictionary known to man. It is a dense, swirling fog of language.
It is a wild ride, and frankly, I've got a bit of a headache just from the prep work. But before we get into the madness of the text itself, and believe me, we're going to get into the rat stew and the lemonade-scented wolf monsters, we have to talk about the author. Because I think once you understand who wrote this, the madness starts to make a tiny bit more sense. Or at least it acquires a specific flavor of nonsense.
That's a good way to put it.
The author is a man named Leaky Jeebers.
Leaky Jeebers. And yes, before you ask, we checked the public records. That is his real name.
It is. Leaky is a retired maritime engineer. Now, let's unpack his background because it is the key to unlocking this book. He didn't just work on boats. He spent 30 years.
30 years.
Designing those autonomous navigational buoys used by the sardine industry.
Okay, so let's pause on that for a second and just think about what that job entails. If you are designing buoys for the open ocean, specifically for the sardine industry, you are dealing with extreme precision in an environment of total chaos.
Utter chaos.
You're dealing with hydrodynamics, complex sensor arrays, data transmission over long distances, and the harsh, corrosive saltwater environment. You have to keep things afloat and functional when the entire world around you is trying to sink you.
Exactly. It's a very serious, very rigid profession. It requires a mind that loves order, measurement, and durability.
Right.
But here is the kicker. In his retirement, Leaky didn't take up golf.
Nope.
He didn't start gardening or painting watercolors of the coast. Leaky became a legend in the world of structural noodle art.
I honestly thought that was a typo in the research notes when I first saw it. I thought, surely it means doodle art or model art. But no.
No.
He builds load-bearing monuments out of dried pasta.
And we aren't talking about gluing macaroni to a paper plate like a kindergartner.
Not at all.
He built a scale replica of the Golden Gate Bridge out of linguine. And not just a sculpture, he built a functional, gear-driven clock made of rigatoni.
Think about that. He engineered pasta to mesh together and keep time.
It's incredible.
That is an incredible feat of engineering, but it's applied to the most absurd material possible. Pasta is brittle, it's organic, it's impermanent.
And to top it all off, he lives on a houseboat, which fits the maritime theme.
It does.
But he lives there with 88 cats.
88. That is a lot of cats.
Staggering number of cats.
That is a lot of litter boxes. That is a lot of meowing.
It is a literal army of felines. So let's look at the profile here. We have a man who has spent his life in maritime isolation, obsessed with precise engineering, who now spends his days gluing pasta together while surrounded by nearly 100 felines in a floating house.
And I think that context is absolutely essential for what we are about to discuss. When you read or listen to the Pasquinade of the Panopticon, you are seeing the mind of an engineer who has perhaps spent a little too much time alone with his thoughts and his cats.
I think that's fair to say.
You see that obsession with mechanics, but it's applied to things that don't need mechanics. And you see a chaotic creativity that feels very much like trying to build a bridge out of linguine. It's a clash of rigid structure and utter nonsense.
It is structural nonsense. That's the perfect phrase for it. It's rigid, but it's made of silly materials. So, our mission today is to decipher this thing. We are going to walk you through the linguistic landscape, the so-called plot.
Plot in heavy quotation marks.
The obsession with weird food and trying to figure out what Leaky Jeebers is actually trying to say.
Or if he's trying to say anything at all, it's possible this is just a prank on the reader.
That is the million-dollar question. So, let's dive into section 1, the linguistic landscape. I want to start right at the top with the title, The Pasquinade of the Panopticon.
It is a mouthful, isn't it? It feels like it was designed to trip you up. It forces your mouth to do gymnastics just to say it.
It does.
But if we break it down, it gives us our first real clue as to what we are dealing with. Let's start with Pasquinade.
It's not a word you hear every day. I don't think I've ever used it in a sentence before this week.
No, it's quite archaic. A pasquinade is a satire or a lampoon, traditionally one that was posted in a public place.
Oh, interesting.
It comes from an old Roman tradition where anonymous lampoons and satirical poems were pasted onto a specific battered statue in Rome called Pasquino. So fundamentally, a pasquinade is a public mocking. It's a ridicule of authority or specific figures.
So the book is a satire, a public mocking, and the Panopticon.
The Panopticon is a fascinating, if slightly terrifying, concept from the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham. It's a design for a prison.
Right.
The idea is a circular building with cells around the perimeter and a single watchtower in the center. The design allows the watchman to observe all the inmates, but, and this is the crucial part, the inmates cannot tell if they're being watched at any given moment because of how the blinds and lighting are set up in the tower.
So it creates a sense of paranoia. You have to behave as if you're being watched because you never know for sure. You police yourself because the threat of observation is constant.
Exactly. It represents a state of constant, internalized observation. It's the ultimate mechanism of control through visibility.
So if we put it together, the satire of the prison, of constant observation, or the mocking of the all-seeing eye.
Precisely. Now remember those 88 cats.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Imagine living on a houseboat, which is a confined space, with 88 pairs of eyes watching you at all times. Cats are very observant creatures. They stare.
That is a literal panopticon. He is the inmate, and the cats are the guards.
And perhaps this book is his pasquinade, his satire of that existence. Or maybe, if we look at his career, the sardine industry he worked for was the original Panopticon. He was designing systems to constantly monitor buoys, constantly checking the data, constantly observing the ocean. The title suggests he feels watched, and he's making fun of the systems that watches him.
That is actually a really profound take on a guy who writes about muckbots. It frames the whole book as a rebellion against surveillance, whether it's from corporate overlords or domestic felines.
It could be both.
But let's talk about the words he uses to conduct this rebellion, because reading this text felt like being hit by a dictionary that was put through a blender.
It really is a wall of sound. Leakey doesn't just use words to convey meaning. He constructs them like he constructs his noodle art. He mixes 3 distinct types of vocabulary, and he switches between them mid-sentence.
Okay.
First, you have high-level, almost academic, archaic English.
Right. I made a list because I had to look half of them up. Words like loquacious, meaning talkative,
Sure, that was a little more common.
or rampallion. I had to look that one up. It's an old word for a villain or a scoundrel. It has such a great mouthfeel. You rampallion?
It does. It really rolls off the tongue. And he uses nudiestertion, which is a delightful word that simply means the day before yesterday.
Why say the day before yesterday when you can say nudiestertion? It takes 4 times as long to say. It's incredibly inefficient.
Exactly. It adds a layer of unnecessary complexity. It slows the reader down.
Okay, so that's layer 1.
Then he mixes in the second layer, scientific instrumentation. He is constantly talking about transducers, spectrometers, bolometers, and interferometers.
But he uses them in the wrong context. He's not measuring light waves or electrical resistance. He's measuring feelings and abstract concepts.
He is. And that's the third layer, the pure gibberish, the portmanteaus,
Yeah.
the nonsense words that sound scientific but mean nothing.
I wrote down a few of my favorites. Scallywagglization.
Right.
It sounds like a scientific process of becoming a scallywag. Turbidimutterance. That sounds like mumbling while underwater.
Aperocynicism. That one is actually clever. Apero comes from the Greek for infinite. So infinite cynicism. Cynicism without bounds.
And Exculpschadenfreude. That sounds like finding pleasure in someone else's misfortune while also being excused from it. Or maybe finding pleasure in being excused while someone else suffers.
It's ambiguous, and that's the point. And then there's the champion of them all. The word that made me press pause and stare at the wall for a moment to contemplate my life choices.
Oh, this one.
Ultra metapera pseudo floccinocini hilpelificational.
Okay, we have to untack that one. I know floccinocini hilpilification is a real word. It's a trivia night favorite.
It is. It's often cited as the longest non-technical word in the English language. It basically means the action or habit of estimating something as worthless.
Right.
Leaky takes that base, which is already absurdly long, and then he bolts on prefixes. He adds ultra, meta, para, and pseudo to the front of it.
So let's trace the logic. Pseudo means fake. Para means beside or beyond. Meta means self-referential. Ultra means extreme. So it's the ultra meta beside fake estimation of something as worthless.
It's meaninglessness squared. It's infinite worthlessness. It's a fractal of zero value. It's a word that consumes itself.
And that's the vibe of the whole book. It forces you to slow down. You can't skim this. You have to chew on every word.
It represents what he calls in the text phonus balonus, which essentially means nonsense, but it's engineered nonsense. The rhythm of the words matters more than the meaning. It's like music. It's an exercise in auditory texture.
He's not writing a sentence. He's building a soundscape.
He's building a soundscape. He wants you to feel the weight of the syllables.
Speaking of soundscapes and textures, let's move to the story itself, or, what passes for a story. Let's move to section 2, the narrative arc. It begins with something called the expedition of the scallywagglization.
Right. The opening scene. We have a lead explorer who is described as Rampallion, and she is standing before a monolith.
The atmosphere is set immediately, and it's confusing. He writes, the dawn of the scallywagglization project began with a deep sense of ontogeneticism.
Whatever that means.
And the crew is facing economic austerity.
It's this weird mix of grand, cosmic journey and budget cuts. It feels very bureaucratic. Like, we're going to discover the secrets of the universe, but we only have the budget for a ham sandwich, and we have to share the oxygen tanks.
Exactly, and very survivalist. One of the key details I loved was the mission itself. They aren't looking for gold or new lands. They are calibrating transducers to detect mondegreens in the wind.
Do you know what a mondegreen is?
I had to Google it, and once I did, I realized I've been guilty of them my whole life.
Oh, everyone has. A mondegreen is a misheard lyric in a song. The term comes from a writer who misheard a Scottish ballad. The line was, laid 'em on the green, and she heard Lady Mondegreen.
Oh, okay.
It's that phenomenon where your brain fills in the gaps of what you hear with something that makes sense to you, even if it's wrong. Like thinking Jimi Hendrix said, excuse me while I kiss this guy instead of kiss this guy.
Right, or the Creedence Clearwater Revival song, Bad Moon Rising, where everyone hears, there's a bathroom on the right.
That's the one.
So they are on a massive scientific expedition with heavy machinery to detect misheard lyrics in the wind. They are hunting for auditory mistakes.
Exactly. It's the juxtaposition of high science and trivial absurdity. They're using tensiometers and magnetometers, tools for measuring physical tension and magnetic fields, to measure things like epiphanies, qualia, and angst.
I saw that line, contemplating the qualia of the stars using magnetorosystometry. It sounds so impressive until you think about what it actually means.
Which is nothing. It's Leakey's engineering background leaking through. He's trying to quantify the unquantifiable human experience. He's taking emotions and abstract concepts, things that are subjective, and trying to measure them with a ruler.
It's like trying to weigh a dream with a bathroom scale.
Perfect analogy.
It creates this really funny image of these very serious people measuring their own feelings with industrial equipment. Captain, my angst levels are peaking on the spectrometer. I need a recalibration.
And the crew is just as weird. You have the subconquerors who loves neologisms, and prima dotard.
Let's break those down. A subconscious sounds like someone who studies the subconscious, but conch implies a shell.
Maybe a shell game. Someone who plays tricks with the subconscious.
And a dotard is an old, senile person. A prima donna is a leading lady in opera. So a prima dotard is the leading senile person, the star of the show who has no idea what's going on.
And is looking for the esse in se, or the being in itself. It's philosophical slapstick.
It really is. And the world they're walking through is gross. It's sticky.
It is. He calls it the muck. There are constant references to muckbots, muxophants, mucology.
Mucklush.
The whole environment involves the belt of pineapple and ruins made of scadium. Scadium sounds suspiciously like scat or waste. It feels industrial, dirty, and biological.
Yeah.
It's not a sterile sci-fi spaceship like Star Trek where everything is white and clean. It's a swamp. It feels like a tidal pool at low tide, where everything is decaying and alive at the same time.
It's teeming with bioluminescence and effulgent light, but it smells like old fish.
Exactly.
Which brings us to one of the most prominent and frankly disturbing features of this book, Section 3, the sensory experience. Specifically, the food.
Oh, the food. We have to talk about the food. I don't recommend listening to this part if you are currently eating lunch.
I have never read a book that mentions so many specific and frankly nauseating meals. It seems like every 3 sentences someone is eating something. It's an obsession.
I think it serves as a grounding mechanism. In the midst of all this paracynicism and transcranial magnetic stimulation, the characters still have to eat.
That's true.
And what they eat is unique. It's survival food gone wrong.
Let's look at the menu. We have fried bullfrog haunches to avoid parahypnagogia.
Parahypnagogia being sleep disorders, presumably, so medicinal frog legs. Eating frogs to keep the nightmares away.
We have abalone and plokkfisker.
Plokkfisker is a real Icelandic fish stew, so that's one of the more normal ones.
Okay, fair. But then mouse lollipops fed to guards.
Frog juice. Rat stew. Silkworm tsukudani.
Apple roasted opossum. And my personal nightmare, a jar of swiftlet saliva.
Swiftlet saliva is actually the main ingredient in bird's nest soup, which is a delicacy in some cultures. It's the hardened saliva of the bird. But phrasing it as a jar of saliva strips away the culinary prestige and makes it sound medicinal, clinical, and gross.
It emphasizes the biological fluid aspect.
It really does.
So why is he so obsessed with this? Why not just have them eat a sandwich? Or a nutrient bar?
I think it reflects 2 things. One, his maritime life. When you're at sea or working in industrial marine environments, food becomes very utilitarian. You eat what's canned, preserved, or what you can catch.
Right, it's just fuel.
It's protein, it's fuel. It's often weird stuffed pickled fish, strange pastes. 2, it adds to that muck theme. We are biological machines. We can talk about philosophy and high-level physics all we want, but at the end of the day, we are shoveling rat ragu into our mouths to keep the engine running.
We are organic matter consuming other organic matter.
Exactly. It's visceral. It prevents the story from floating away into total abstraction. It reminds the reader that these people have bodies, and those bodies are hungry and gross.
And then there's the sound, the orchestra of obscurity.
The sheer number of musical instruments mentioned is staggering. It's like he opened a music encyclopedia and decided to use every single entry.
I started making a list and ran out of paper. Pandero, kora, bandoneon, theorbo, psalmodicon.
Nickel arpa, djembe, guitar, theremin.
These aren't just guitars and drums. These are very specific, often obscure instruments from different cultures and time periods. The nickel harpa is a Swedish keyed fiddle. The theremin is that electronic instrument you play without touching it.
And notice how they are used. They aren't played for entertainment.
Right.
Someone plays a bandoneon to escape kitsch.
Right.
Someone plays a marimba to measure entropy.
Music is treated as a scientific force.
Exactly. In Leakey's world, sound is just another physical property to be engineered. You don't play a song to feel happy. You play a stro viol to adjust the meconium levels.
It's so consistent with that theme of quantifying everything. He treats a melody like a mathematical equation. It's a very engineer-like way to look at art as a functional utility.
It is.
So we have this crew eating rat stew and playing the theremin to measure entropy, marching through the muck. And that leads us to Section 4. The narrative arc part 2, things take a turn.
The descent. Things get weird.
Weirder.
We shift perspective to a pilot and his assistant. The assistant is described as a lackwit wearing a sarong. A great description. And their cargo is snail eggs, lapsy candy, and a jar of Swiftlet saliva.
Naturally. You can't fly without your saliva and snail eggs. It's the essentials.
Basic carry-on items.
But then disaster strikes. A paroxysm of the electromagnetical system. They crash land.
And this is where the story, if we can call it that, becomes a Panopticon story. They are trapped. They encounter a misanthrope, an old man, a mossback, eating pad crapow frog.
This scene felt like a fever dream version of Alice in Wonderland meeting the caterpillar.
That's a great comparison.
The dialogue here is intense. They are sparring about gongorical lubrolactid aperogrammancy.
That is a phrase. Guangorical likely refers to Luis de Góngora, a Spanish poet from the Baroque era, known for his incredibly complex ornamental style over substance almost.
Okay.
Lubrolactid suggests lubrication, and aperogrammancy would be divination by infinity.
So complex, lubricated, infinite divination.
It sounds exhausting.
It sounds like a meeting that never ends.
It does. The characters are trapped in a frontistry, which is a real word meaning a thinking place or a place for study. But here it's a trap. They are surrounded by burets and vaxids. They are trapped in a linguistic entrapment.
They can't escape the big words. They are literally fenced in by jargon.
They're paralyzed by sophistry and neo voces promisticae. It's a great metaphor. You can get so lost in theory and jargon that you literally crash your ship and can't move.
You analyze yourself into paralysis.
Exactly. You discuss the gongoric lubrolactid aperogrammancy of the problem instead of just fixing the engine.
And then we get to the final setting, the laboratory, the megalopolitan sprawl ruled by an autocrat.
This felt like the court of a mad king. The autocrat is insouciant, unconcerned, indifferent. The servants are offering smoked emu eggs and fat choy. But it's also a failed science experiment. The lab is falling apart.
The hybrid. We have to talk about the hybrid. This was the moment where I felt like I finally understood Leakey's humor.
The attempt to hybridize a lobster and a wolf.
A Crusacian Brachyurus.
Right. Now, in a normal sci-fi book, a wolf-lobster hybrid would be a terrifying killing machine.
Yeah.
It would be the final boss. It would have claws and fangs and be unstoppable.
But here, the result wasn't a monster. It was a pugnacious leviathan that smells like lemonade.
I laughed out loud at that. It's so specific and so disappointing. It sums up the whole endeavor. All this high-tech machinery, all this aperogrammancy, all this struggle, and you get a lemonade-scented wolf lobster.
It's just silly. It's the ultimate failure of the Pasquinade, the satire of the scientific ambition. It's silly, but it smells nice.
It's absurdism at its finest. It undermines the seriousness of the entire genre.
And the climax, the lack thereof.
The chaos of the Orchian, the spectrometer spikes. There's a lot of moctality and humbugification.
And the Duger head of the lab has a realization. He realizes the work is a sponicalizationalistic nightmare.
I love that word, sponicalizationalistic. It sounds so official, yet means absolutely nothing. It sounds like something a consultant would say in a boardroom. We need to avoid a sponicalizationalistic outcome to leverage our synergies.
So what does he do? Does he fight the wolf lobster? Does he blow up the lab? Does he save the world?
No. He grabs a trine bowl, which just means a wooden bowl, tosses in some eutrophic water, which is water rich in nutrients, probably algae-filled swamp water, and leaves.
He just walks out.
He walks out of the Panopticon. The closing thought is haunting. The Cairo was lost. Enough to make anyone garnish your own sanity.
To garnish your own sanity, to seize your own sanity as a debt, like the IRS taking your wages.
It implies that trying to make sense of this world costs you your mind. The only way to win is to leave the lab, take your wooden bowl of dirty water, and go. Escape the observation, escape the analysis.
Which brings us nicely to Section 5, the nuggets of value. Stan asked us to find value in this madness. He wanted the aha moment. What does it all mean?
I think there are three main takeaways here. First, this is a biting satire of intellectualism.
How so?
Well, look at the characters. They use polysyllabic chanting and apophysis to hide the fact that they are just people eating scrapple and rat ragout.
They're using big words to sound important.
They use terms like ultra metaperith pseudofloxinous cinehilification to dress up simple concepts. They're trying to elevate their mundane, messy reality into something grand and academic.
It's the emperor's new clothes of vocabulary.
Exactly. It highlights the absurdity of overanalysis. We do this in the corporate world, in academia. We use jargon to build a wall around ourselves, to make our work seem more important or complex than it is.
We say utilizing cross-functional modalities instead of talking to the other team.
That is the perfect example. Leaky Jeebers is taking that to its logical, absurd extreme.
So the nugget is, don't be a subconquerist. Speak plainly.
Right. Or at least recognize when you are being one. Real intelligence isn't about using the biggest word. It's about clarity. If you need a word with 10 syllables to explain your day, you're probably hiding something.
The second theme is the joy of muck.
Yes. Despite the high-flown language, the book is obsessed with dirt, slime, bugs, and dacium.
It's earthy. It refuses to be clean.
It's a reminder that we are biological creatures. We can build autonomous navigational buoys and monoliths, but we still eat battered bat brains and brown beetle butter. We can't engineer our way out of being biological messy organisms. We are part of the muck. We are not separate from the environment, even if we try to measure it with a tensiometer.
And finally, the engineering of nonsense. This connects back to Leakey's noodle art.
This is the key. Think about a bridge made of linguine. It is a ridiculous object. It shouldn't exist. It serves no practical purpose. You can't drive a car over it.
No.
But to build it, you need precise engineering principles. You need to understand load, tension, and geometry. You have to take it seriously to make it exist.
So this book is a noodle bridge.
It is a structural noodle sculpture of words. It looks complex. It looks load-bearing. It has the structure of a grand autobiography or a scientific paper. But the materials, the words themselves, are fragile, edible nonsense.
It challenges the reader to find meaning, or teleology, as Leakey would say, in a world that might just be phonus balonus.
It challenges you to look at a complex system and ask, is this brilliant? Or is this just a wolf lobster that smells like lemonade? It trains your critical thinking to spot the difference between substance and structure.
That is a question I think we should all ask ourselves more often, especially when reading quarterly reports or listening to politicians.
Agreed. Is this real, or is it just scented nonsense?
And so to wrap this up, the Pasquinade of the Panopticon is a challenging, hilarious, and headache-inducing journey. It's a lexicon of madness.
It's a literary fever dream that somehow strangely makes sense when you view it as the work of a lonely engineer living with 88 cats. It's a testament to the weirdness of the human mind when left to its own devices.
Stan, if you're listening, here is our report. The value is in the satire. It's a mirror held up to our own obsession with complexity. It tells us to stop measuring our angst and just eat our frog legs.
And a warning about the dangers of eating too much Swiftlet saliva.
Definitely that. Now, before we let you go, I have a provocative thought for you, the listener. We've laughed at the muxiphants and the subconquerists in this book.
We have.
But think about your own life.
How much jargon do you use in your daily emails?
How much technobabble do you use to mask the simple reality of what you're doing? When you say you're leveraging synergies to optimize bandwidth, aren't you just calibrating your transducer in the muck?
Are we all just trying to catch mondegreens in the wind? Are we hearing what we want to hear and building complex systems to justify it?
Something to mull over the next time you eat. Well, maybe just a sandwich.
Hopefully not a rat sandwich.